You've seen the viral claim that burying a potato plant in a deep tower grows 100 pounds of potatoes in a 4 by 4 foot footprint. But hard data proves this trick actually starves your crop. We weigh 3 competing planting systems to test the claim that manipulating stem nodes multiplies your tuber harvest 5-fold. If you try deep burying with a standard grocery store potato, you'll end up with almost zero harvest. We'll explain why. The biology of the underground stem. Let's start with how this plant actually builds food. Potatoes do not grow on the plant's roots. Instead, they swell up on horizontal underground shoots known as stolons, which act like sideways branches growing beneath the dirt. Picture these sideways underground stems swelling into potatoes, completely separate from the deep root network. If you bury the leafy green parts of the main stalk, the lack of sunlight tricks the plant. It starts shooting out more of these sideways branches from the basal nodes, the foundational joints at the bottom of the plant, rather than growing leaves above ground. This biological loophole is the exact reason people falsely believe they can force a plant into endless harvests. The theory assumes that if you keep burying the stem, it keeps making more branches, giving you a massive vertical column of food.
But your harvest size is limited by how many leaves the plant has to catch sunlight, not how much soil you pile on. The leafy green parts act as the plant's solar panels. Once they collect enough energy, the leaves send a chemical text message down to the roots, a mobile protein signal called SP6A, saying, "Make food now." You can't cheat biology. Burying a plant deeper doesn't magically give it more energy to create food.
The flatbed baseline. Let's look at the first system, completely flat beds. This means planting the potato and doing absolutely nothing to build the soil up around it. A 5-year USDA study led by agricultural engineer Bradley King across almost 6,900 acres in Kimberly, Idaho, found that skipping the dirt mounds entirely is the real secret. Planting potatoes in completely flat ground actually increased harvests by 6% while using 5% less water. A 2017 study by Stallam proved that wide flatbeds yield 13% more tubers than traditional mounded rows. You grow more food and save water by doing absolutely nothing but leaving the ground flat. This low-effort, zero-waste method outperforms traditional mounded rows in terms of yield. If stripping the myths out of your food supply is why you're here, we test the exact biology behind these systems every week. System 2. Progressive hilling. So if flatbeds win, why do we mound dirt at all? This brings us to the second system, progressive hilling. There is a very real reason farmers mound dirt around potatoes, and it has to do with keeping your family safe. For centuries, farmers have mounded 4 to 6 inches of soil around the base of the plant, slowly pulling a dirt blanket up around the plant's ankles over time. But they do not do it to get bigger yields. They do it to block sunlight from hitting the growing potatoes. When sunlight hits the skin, you get a green, sun-exposed, toxic potato. The light triggers the production of a toxic alkaloid called solanine. That chemical makes the food highly poisonous to eat. Traditional dirt mounding is a safety mechanism to keep your harvest edible. As the agricultural experts at Cultivariable put it, hilling up much beyond 6 inches brings no benefits and is likely to reduce yield. System 3, the deep tower. Which brings us to the third system, the viral deep tower. You take a container, plant a potato, and as it grows, you keep burying the green stem until you have a 30-inch vertical column of dry dirt. The promise is that every buried joint will become a new layer of food. When agronomic trials test these tall towers, the results are usually terrible. The vertical columns suffer from heat stress and uneven moisture distribution, ruining the soil ecosystem. A buried plant just wastes its energy pushing toward the surface to find the sun, leaving you with a tiny harvest. This failure happens because most standard grocery store potatoes are determinate early season varieties. They have a biological timer that stops growth no matter what you do. They generally produce a single layer of tubers at their original planting depth. Indeterminate varieties, which have no off switch for vertical growth, can theoretically keep climbing as vines, but standard potatoes just give up. If you pile dirt on top, they do not grow new layers. Cultivariable tested this directly, noting It is specifically the claim that towers are able to produce greater yields due to the production of more layers of tubers that is wrong.
The final weigh-in. When we put these three systems side by side, the data proves exactly what works.
System 3, the deep tower, gives you a massive container of dry dirt and a handful of exhausted, tiny potatoes. The plant spent all its energy climbing a 30-inch column instead of feeding you. System 2, traditional hilling, gives you a solid, safe yield and prevents toxic greening. It protects the crop, but it takes extra manual labor every few weeks to keep pulling that dirt blanket higher. System 1, the flatbed, gives you the most food for the absolute least work. By ignoring the myth and leaving the ground flat, the plant focuses entirely on sending that SP6A protein signal down to the roots, maximizing the sideways growth right at the surface. Here's the wild part. Humans have manipulated soil depth for potatoes for over 8,000 years, ever since indigenous farmers domesticated them using terracing in the high-altitude Andes Mountains. Yet modern data proves that just leaving the ground flat beats all that historical engineering. Click here to see how fish waste can fuel that flat ground root system. You can finally stop hauling heavy wheelbarrows of dirt to build those towering containers. Put your shovel away. Let the exposed soil soak up the afternoon sun and start feeding those horizontal branches exactly what they crave. The next step to an explosive garden harvest is waiting for you right here. If you liked this, why burying cooked rice in the woods beats modern fertilizer? That's the next one.